back at certain songs, they mean a lot to you, don't you? You know, it doesn't matter when you hear them or what generation you are, instantly you remember where you were and what you were doing. And they're evergreen classics, you know, the ones I'm talking about, Rock Around the Clock, something of that nature. This particular song, though, I was lucky enough to meet the creators, not only the beautiful singer, supremely talented Petula Clark, but also Song Supremo himself, Tony Hatch. And this is what they told me about their evergreen classic, Downtown. Downtown was one of the biggest hits on the Ed Sullivan Show. This is because an executive at Warner Records had been over to London and basically was at Pye Records, which was in the heart of Marble Arch. Now, according to Petula, basically Tony Hatch had come over to Paris to her apartment, and she was making a pot of tea in the kitchen, like you do, and he was sort of playing her a few of his songs, and she said, oh, you know, I'm not really keen on that, yeah, might be, all this. But in 2 weeks' time, they had to come back here to London to make some songs, some brand new tunes. Now, Tony himself had also recently been for his very first visit in 1964 to the wonderful city that is New York. And miraculously, he said, just walking around, he spotted this idea. He thought he was in downtown New York. In effect, he was really in the center of New York, Times Square, all that sort of stuff. But apparently, when he was waiting at a sort of, you know, crossing, the tune, the melody line came to him, and the word downtown stuck. Didn't think any much more about it. And when he came back to London, and there he was, with, of course, Petula Clark in the flat in Paris, he just played her this riff. Now, remember, at this point, there's no lyrics and there's no sort of guidance. She stops in the kitchen and says, if you can come up with some lyrics for that, I think we might be on to something. And an international hit was born. 2 weeks later, they're back into the studio, and there's 40 musicians now waiting for this, well, colossal tune, which has apparently still been written by Tony in the gents' toilet, right? Truly. And this is what Tony told me. And eventually they finished it and put it together. But it wasn't this sort of instant thing. Apparently the bosses at Pye Records were really unsure. You know, this was Petula's coming back song into the English charts. As I said, an executive from Warner Brothers Records, Warner Music, was in London and said, I'll take it. This is terrific. This speaks to Americans. Yeah, great. And he took it over back to the United States. He then passed it on to the bosses of the Ed Sullivan Show. Ed, being already a fan of the brilliant Petula Clark, let's book her. And basically, overnight, that song was a big hit in America first, more so than over here in the United Kingdom to start with. It went to #1. It became the tune, of course, of that particular summer. Over here, it was kept off the #1 spot by, well, you've guessed it, of course, the Beatles with I Feel Fine. But even now, as Petula's re-recorded it a number of times, it remains their tune. And when you think about it, it's always about the look, isn't it? The drawl, the moment, piecing it all together, you know, that sort of thing. Ed Sullivan was influential in making stars and making big hits of stuff. We forget, of course, we think about the Beatles and all that, but there were others, Billy J. Kramer, The Searchers, lots and lots of, well, the Merseyside Invasion. But Petula Clark, Downtown, and the brilliant showmanship of Tony Hatch ensures that this tune lives on today. And let's be honest, you are going to be singing it now, right? Neil Sean in the very heart of London.